Hey, what's up, Jeff? How's it
Hey
going,
John,
man?
how's it going?
Doing well, thanks. This is Jeff from Golden Squirrel. I'm excited to have you on this interview because I love your story. No recruiting background, and went from zero to like 38,000, right, in placement fees in about 90 days time, with some, in spite of some bumps along the road that you kind of admitted you kind of ran into. So yeah, was looking forward to having you share your story on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was it was really unlikely in that I my background was in starting a code school and so helping junior developers learn how to code.
Hmm.
And so for me personally, once the pandemic hit and I was kind of looking for something to do, I actually started meeting with a bunch of my former students and with CTOs, kind of seeing just how I could help out the community. And
Hmm.
so as I was doing that, it's probably no surprise to anyone in the tech industry that everybody's looking for software engineers or data engineers right now. And so
Yeah.
several people asked me, hey, can you do placements? And I always said no, just because I didn't know how to or didn't
Hmm.
really have any interest in doing so at the time. And then it happened enough times that then on the flip side, some of my students that I had originally gotten their first jobs for would say, hey, can you help me out get my second job now that it's been 5 years later? So I was like, sure, but I don't really know how to do that portion of the process. And so ended up with these companies that wanted engineers and engineers that I knew needed jobs, but had no idea around the process of how to start a recruiting firm or even where to get started. And so
Hmm.
that's when I came across you and talked to you a lot about the course itself. And so I think the biggest selling point for me was, as with any course or anything you learn, you can always learn it on your own if you want. What you're paying for is time, right? So like I'm
Yeah.
sure I could have learned like 90% of what was in this course, but it would have taken, probably between 5 and 7 years to really dial it in to the point that John had it for me the next day. And so, right, like I felt like I was paying for 5 to 7 years of experience that I didn't have to experience on my own. So for me, it was a no brainer in terms of going from zero experience. I always tell John it's like 0 to 60 essentially.
Mhm.
And then now that we're at 60, I might be jumping ahead of what your questions
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be. But for
that's good.
me,
Yeah.
from going from 0 to 60, John was 100%. I just started with his scripts and his process and just didn't deviate from those because I didn't know how I could even deviate from those, to be honest. And then, so from
Mhm.
now, the interesting and unique thing about this particular course is from going to 60 to 100 now, is what we're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And so, the unique part of this course is that this is an ongoing, living, breathing course, right? So, this isn't just like, here's your tutorials, here's your YouTube videos, and off you go. Like,
Yeah.
I signed up and it wasn't like 4 live calls and then it's over. Like John is actively continuing to work with me for I'm assuming what will be a while on the
Yeah.
questions
Yeah. I'll
and
be around.
concerns that I have that I get stuck with because we've already upgraded tools together twice on certain things that he's constantly researching. So I think that's what makes this course specifically very unique is that you will always get live information no matter when it was that you signed up. As long as you're willing to put in the work and show up to the calls, John will help you untangle whatever you're stuck on.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think it comes from my like dissatisfaction with like the status quo. Once something's working, but if I hear of someone out there doing something differently or newer, potentially better, I'm like, wait, what's that? And so that's why I know you, since you've implemented like LinkedIn automation, right, in a different way with a different processes and tools, like you've been getting like crazy traction. You showed me earlier your list of people just kind of raising their hand and replying back to you, right? Versus doing things manually initially, right?
Oh, definitely. So the automation tools are the best part of the
Yeah.
process itself. And so it was somewhat ironic as I was showing John kind of some of the things that I'd implemented that he showed me, and a message popped up while we were looking at it from an engineer that was looking at a position we have open. And so
Yeah.
it's a very real thing in terms of how to automate things in a very specific way. That's also like, because a lot of times I think automation gets thrown into like all of the spam that all of us get within the LinkedIn world, right? But this is automation in a way that's very targeted and very specific to people who are responding, right? Because we wouldn't be getting all of these responses if it wasn't in a informative way that's helping the person solve their problem. And so And it's not generic either, right? It's not just like,
Yeah.
here's this awesome position that you'll get. I always joke, you get great compensation. Would you like to hop on a call real quick for 30 minutes? Like, nobody wants that, right? So
Yeah. All right. Well, and then like when you got your like, what was your reaction when you got those first like couple placements and the fees attached? I mean, $38,000 is a lot of money. Like, did you have like a, oh shoot, like this is actually working moment?
yeah, I think it's kind of like I would equate it to like going to the gym where you go and you don't see any results, and then all of a sudden you're like, I think I can see part of my ab showing. I think so. It's kind of like that. So then you're just like, now I got to go to the gym even more, right? So that's
Yeah.
what it felt like. It was kind of just like, oh my goodness, this worked. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time that happened was much before that. Like I got reinforcement way before the placement because
Mhm.
I probably made more mistakes than the average person would make in the process and kind of took some of the process for granted and was just like, oh, obviously they'll accept this job. This is, like 30, 40,000 more than the candidate makes now. The position is going to be super intellectually challenging. And then kind of like not put all the energy I probably should into that particular, some of their questions they had, just assuming like, this is awesome. And then they would fall out of the process, right? And so that was really discouraging. But I know that my business partner and I, as we were working through those things, for us personally, it was all about just sticking with the process and making sure that it was continued. Like the encouraging part for us was the automation by far,
Mhm.
because despite not getting the results that we wanted, the automation portion was actually just as encouraging, as not more encouraging, as the actual placement, because you're constantly getting another at bat to kind of do it
Yeah.
right the next time. So
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like human nature. Right? It's hard to fake like abundance when like you don't, your responses are few and far between, and your at bats are few and far between.
right,
Then this is probably pressure to like, I need to convert this. I need to make this win. Whereas now with the automation, you're getting a flow of at bats, right? Like you said. And so for the roles that you got the 38K for, those were they engineers or managers, or what were the titles exactly, so people
I
can kind of
believe both
resonate.
were software engineers,
Mhm.
senior software engineers. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, both of them are that.
Right. Well, I think you have a great, unique value proposition because you are a developer first and foremost. You learn recruiting, right? And I think that makes you probably, yeah, better qualified to filter out, less technical candidates, people that might look good on paper, but when you talk to them, right, like you can vet their abilities better than people who are a recruiter first and maybe like learn technical components later.
100%. And I would say even probably just as important as that is I'm able to empathize with the kind of gauntlet that the hiring process can be for software engineers, right? So
Hmm.
like there's a lot of times where there's no transparency of like maybe what compensation is, or maybe they want an all day on site for a code test, but like if you'd known
Yeah.
that before you even started, like you wouldn't have even wanted to apply to that role. So I think I
Yeah.
can really empathize with it's a big risk to switch jobs, right? To kind of take
Hmm.
on something that is unfamiliar and you don't know who your manager is going to be. And so I've kind of tried to create a hiring process for engineers that my business partner Chase and I have wanted ourselves, which was just like, here's the salary, here's what you'd be working on, here's the tech you'll be working with, here's the interview process. Do you want to move forward before anything else has happened in that transaction? Right? Because we really
Hmm.
want to try
Yeah.
to de-risk the hiring process is kind of what we always say, so that it's because engineers, I mean, most engineers in my experience will want to maximize their compensation, but it's
Hmm.
definitely not the driving force of what they're trying to do in their careers. They
Yeah.
really just want to be intellectually stimulated and learn from somebody smarter than them. And then as soon as they feel like they have a feel and they've kind of mastered a particular topic or technology or framework, they kind of want to move on. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times they can do that within their own company that they're in, and successful CTOs may ensure that that happens. But when
Yeah.
it doesn't, like we want to be able to be there so that they can kind of figure out their next challenge and get a small pay bump along the way.
Right. And then I think that applies with like you being able to coach your recruiting clients in terms of a hiring. I've had to do this so many times where the VP of engineer, in an effort to like be, efficient and weed out people aggressively up front, the first step of the interview process is like a coding test. Like you'd have to complete and pass a coding test before they even get to talk to anybody at that company. And I'm like, you're just losing so many people who are like,
So
you
many,
want me? I'm super busy. I have like my own
so
projects
many.
and two kids, and you want me to do like a 6 hour coding test to like, build something before I even get a chance to even talk about what this opportunity is, right? So it comes down with both being able to really be the middleman, right? Like you're doing everything in the best interest of the client to get them and attract the best candidates, getting the candidates to be attracted to the client, and just kind of moving things along efficiently, and now using automation and tools to really speed things up, right? But yeah, I mean, so I'm really excited because I think this is just the beginning, right? And I know you know it too. You said you're at 0 to 60 now. At this point, made a couple placements, 38K. Now it's like, all right, how? And I'll be working with you kind of going forward with some of the email automation piece to layer on some of the different more like hyper responsive like response strategies to basically get that 38K coming in consistently now, you know, every other month, every month, and then now growing from there. So I know you're excited about that too. So if a hiring manager is listening to this and they're hiring tech people, how can they get a hold of you? And like what should they know about you uh,
I would say the
before you
easiest way
chat with them?
for them to get a hold of us is just they can just email me at jeff@goldensquirrel.io.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing it's kind of your previous point, right? So to if any small or medium sized company is hiring, and I'd put that in any like 100 to 500 employees or less. I mean, far
Mm-hmm.
small. The smaller you are, the bigger advantage this actually is for you as a company. Is
Mm-hmm.
that if you can efficiently set up your hiring process in a way that developers, you don't even have to make them enjoy your hiring process. You just have to make them not dread it, right? Like that's where the bar is currently.
Yeah.
So you have a huge competitive advantage if you can make your hiring process efficient and get people into the door to just have a conversation about what is it you're building. I know as a company you need to make sure that they're technically competent because they're on the flip
Mm-hmm.
side there are a lot of like fraudulent and bad actors on the other side. So like but there are ways to do that that don't start with like a 4-hour code test, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For
So
sure.
so I think if they're having a hard time finding specifically senior level talent that is excited about their opportunity, the other unique thing is that I have a sales background also, and so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times that the engineers just need to be like in the job description. There's all these requirements, and you're trying to cast your net as wide as possible as a hiring engineer. But for a candidate,
Yeah.
those things don't mean anything to you. Like, what am I going to be working on and who am I going to be working for is really all they care about. That's why usually the jobs they take are things their friends tell them about because that's the only place they can find that piece of information. So for
Yeah.
hiring managers that are having a hard time with that, I would say I can really help coach on the hiring process and how to attract devs, and then tell me what it is you need, and we can structure it in such a way that we can even structure the job if needed to make sure that you get the level of talent you need because you're really going to need to sell that position to senior engineers because their options are unlimited at the moment.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. It's a tight candidate market, especially for devs, and so it's smart that you're approaching it from an empathetic and you know as a hands-on practitioner of software development that you understand it. I guess maybe we can end on an important note, which is can you show us the logo of your golden squirrel because it's just so darn cute.
Oh yeah, the little squirrel.
Yeah, he's so cute.
Um,
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so we called it golden squirrel because there was always the term. It's usually like unicorns or purple squirrels are engineers that where the hiring manager lists out all these requirements that don't exist essentially, and
Mhm.
so we called it golden squirrel because gold is on the opposite side of the color wheel as purple, and so we kind of wanted to set up squirrels that actually exist instead of ones that don't exist and can
Okay,
actually get things done. But then one of our
got it.
buddies drew the little squirrel, and even though it was like well, as soon as we showed it to people, they loved it. So we were like, we have to stick with this one.
Yeah, I love it too. So yeah, any hiring managers out there looking for devs and looking for these golden squirrels, reach out to Jeff. But yeah, man, thanks for doing this call. I'm really enjoyed it, and then yeah, looking forward to helping you go from 60 to 100 and keep those 38K placement fees coming in month after month.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. And if I'm being honest, even though it's been several months that we've been at this and had a little success, I feel like we're just now getting some traction, getting started. So
Mhm.
I'm actually looking forward to the journey of working with you on scaling this, and then we can check in the future and answer any additional questions anybody has.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Hey, thanks again, Jeff.
All
All
right,
right, man.
thanks.
Have a great weekend. We'll talk
You
soon.
too.
see you the next coaching call. All
Exactly.
right.
See you,
See ya.
man.
Bye now.